Rimworld is a really interesting game to try and review. It is full of random events, and every time you start a new game, you'll learn and discover new things. The game will steal hours upon hours from you while you're trying to keep your colonists from being eaten alive by carnivorous turtles. It is such a deep game that every time you go back and play it again, you'll learn and discover new things about the game. If the 99% positive review score on Steam shouldn't be enough to convince you in itself, let me try and tell you exactly what this game is about. Let's get some of the more boring stuff out of the way first. The game is developed and published by Kotharion Studios, which is a small indie team led by the man himself, Tynan Sylvester. The game is available on Steam or their official website for $35. While this price might seem a little steep for some by a brief glance at the game, this is actually a very low price for the endless of hours you can put into this game. And when considering that I have put nearly 300 hours into it at this point, $35 is a very low amount for the hundreds of hours of entertainment you can get away with here. Now, Rimworld doesn't exactly have a set story such as games like The Outer Worlds, which we did a review of a few weeks ago, so feel free to check that out if you haven't already. Instead, this game lets you make and create your own stories. You start out by generating a planet, you choose where you want your colony to start, and from here on out, your possibilities are nearly infinite. You do have a goal in mind though. Your goal is to escape from the hostile planet you have crash landed on, but similar to how you forget about finding your kid in Fallout 4, here you quickly become more focused on making a thriving colony rather than abandoning it. One of the complaints I had about The Outer Worlds as an example was the inability to customize how difficult you wanted your game to be. You had your standard options, easy, medium, hard, and super hard, but Rimworld has really nailed down the options here. You choose between many options, deciding if you want to be able to save and reload whenever you want. Do you want permadeath to be on your settlers, causing you to not be able to reload the game anymore? Do you want a steady difficulty curve that grows as you play, or do you truly want a random chaos with no limits to the amount or time in between random events can occur? This makes it so that no matter how experienced you are with the game, there will always be a challenge ready for you to match your knowledge of the game. Of course, starting as a new player, you might want to choose some of the easier options to get familiar with the game. You're provided with a tutorial that you can play through, but it only really scratches the surface of all the things you can experience. So most of your knowledge and fun with the game will come through trial and error. This can often be seen as a negative point in games, but with Rimworld it manages to turn it into a positive experience. Since every game you'll be playing is vastly different from your previous ones, whether it be because of your starting locations, the procedurally generated worlds and maps, or just because of the many different in-game events that will occur all the time to keep it interesting. On top of all of this, you'll also get to choose your starting scenario, which means that you'll have different amount of settlers and resources upon the start of the game, all of them varying in difficulty and will make each time drastically different. So it's obvious we have a lot of different options to keep the game different and interesting. But the best parts of the game comes through all the random events and all the different things you can do in the game. Everything from selling slaves or harvesting people's organs. As morbid as it sounds, it's actually quite fun and interesting with the amounts of tools the game gives you to really shape your own way of playing. To add to this, all your settlers will have different bonuses or negative traits that makes them behave in certain ways. You might have a misogynistic farmer while also having a masochistic hunter, which will lead to fairly crazy but funny interactions between the two people. Some settlers will dream about getting bionic body parts, which will mean you will have to amputate limbs and replace them with robotic parts, or if you're feeling extra evil, you can amputate your captive people's legs and replace them with wooden peg legs. Set them free and watch as they do their best to escape all the hostile animals they might run into. The core part of the game, however, is to keep all your settlers happy and sort out their needs, to keep them from going on rampages or killing sprees and messing up your settlement. Some people might be pyromaniacs, and whenever they feel down, they'll start lighting fires that you have to put out to keep everyone safe. It all just leads to very funny and facepalming moments when all of a sudden one of your trusted settlers start putting fires in your newly built wooden base and watching it all crumble to the ground because this one guy was jealous of someone else's bedroom. In the start of your journey, it will be quite easy to manage depending on your difficulty, of course. But as you start getting more and more people joining your colony, it'll quickly become more difficult to keep everyone happy and cater to every colonist's specific needs. The game also has the effect that civilization games have on me. That's to say that there's always one little thing you want to get done before you're done for the day, which quickly dominoes into you realizing it's 6 AM in the morning and you should probably try and get a good 20-minute nap before leaving for work. But to get back on track, the game has lots of different turn of events, especially with how hostile the world will be towards you. In one moment, a disease might have caught one of your settlers, quickly spreading to whomever they got in contact with, causing you to realize you haven't built a medical area yet. So you should probably get on that so you can separate the sick from the healthy. But at the same time, you realize that your doctor is one of the people who got infected and you'll have to manage that as well. Then you finally manage to build your med bay, things seems to be under control, but now what's this?
How about the settlement problem? Another settlement needs our help. I'll mark it on your maps.
No, wait, wrong game. A hostile settlement nearby is launching a raid against you with half your fighting force in bed with malaria, so now you're wondering why you haven't researched defense turrets yet. Instead of researching carpets to make your rooms look more nice so that it'll have a positive mood effect on your colonists due to a nice looking room. The game does such a great job at creating weird and memorable scenarios that you'll be telling your friends about, especially if they're playing the game as well. It's great to get a good laugh with your friends and share stories on how your colonies had mental breakdowns and managed to just domino out of hand in the matter of minutes. I briefly mentioned researching before, which is a vital part of the game's progression. As you start the game, you'll have limited buildings and necessities researched, which means you need to get settler with a high intelligence so they can research things you need as fast as possible. And the game has a neat little skill tree looking research menu where you can clearly see what is available to you and shows you a line of progression so you know what to research first if there's a certain thing you'd like to have unlocked as quickly as possible. And it goes from everything to carpets, the ability to brew beer, colored TVs, blacksmiths to create sword or guns, or even making rocket parts so you can escape off the planet. And while you're focusing on your own little part of this huge planet, other settlements will develop, stop by to visit or trade, or maybe try their hand on attacking and stealing your supplies. You can send them gifts or trade with them, help out people in need, or attack them to affect your relationship towards them. You can also send out caravans to go to their base and trade with them, maybe kidnap some of their settlers as slaves, sell them off to slave traders, or try and convince them to join your own colony. Sometimes you'll be getting quests from nearby colonies asking you to help them out or attacking warring neighbors for them, which in return will strengthen your bond with them and maybe give you discounts when trading or just a specific quest reward. As I said, this game provides so many options to you and it's all up to you what you want to do with them. You can play your entire game digging into the mountains, not talking or trading to anyone, dig for minerals and create farms inside the mountains, setting up defense turrets in the entrance to secure yourself from raids, only to creep out of your dungeon to scavenge the loot from your fallen enemies before subsiding back into the depths, then only to find out that you've dug too deep into the mountain, causing alien bugs to hunt you down or finding an old tomb full of dangers. From looking at gameplay in the background, you might be wondering how the game itself plays. Does it feel slow? Is it fast paced enough? Or does it fall a bit short? The game has a sim style pause and fast forward mechanic, where whenever your settlers are just farming resources and nothing too exciting is going on, you can speed up your game, which will then abruptly be interrupted by one of the random events happening, causing you to slow it back down, or even pausing the game so you can get an overview of what's going on and come up with a plan on what to do. This makes it so that you never really go too long without having some sort of decision to make. And this is greatly heightened if you're playing on the mode where you can no longer reload your game, as it makes every decision you make a vital one. A bad decision can quickly spiral out of control and cause deaths to your settlers. The game has pleasant music playing in the background and it has great sound as well. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's not the same two melodies playing on a loop over and over again, which is quite important for a game like this, seeing as you can play it for hundreds of hours. That being said though, this is one of the games I like to play while maybe throwing on a podcast or catching up on news for the week, as the game doesn't have any cinematics or voice acting to keep you immersed in the world like an RPG would. I also want to talk a bit about the performance of the game. It runs great from my experience, but it is a very CPU heavy game, so if you're running on an older setup, the game can get a bit laggy once you're getting a settlement to be really big with lots of commands going on at the same time. But honestly, most of the time you'll probably have managed to kill off your colony long before it gets to the point of being that big, or you'll have sent them into space and won the game long before this becomes an issue. It's only if you deliberately want to try and make a huge colony on a large map size. Expect it to run into minor problems if your hardware aren't quite up to date, but the game will warn you of that beforehand when choosing larger maps to play on. All in all, it's hard to find negative things to say about Rimworld. It sets out to be a very in-depth management colony simulation with events and crazy things happening all the time. It does that flawlessly. It's taking great inspiration from games such as Dwarf Fortress, but made it much more accessible with the detailed look of the game, especially when compared to other games in its genre. There's a reason why it's one of the highest rated games on Steam, and it will provide you with hundreds of hours of gameplay if you let it, and especially if this sort of game is in your wheelhouse. And even if you should manage to run out of things to do in the game and feel like you're getting bored, the game has a huge modding scene behind it, a big community developing new mods for you to try out and play around with every single day. Some of them updating minor quality of life issues you might have with the game, or big projects nearly changing the way the entire game is played. So if you haven't already checked out Rimworld, I would highly recommend picking it up if it sounds like it's something you'd enjoy. If you still think $35 is a bit too steep for a game like this, you can always wait for one of the many sales Steam has all around the year and pick it up on a discount. It's great to try out on a rainy day, throw on a podcast, and mess up your sleep schedule with this game before you even realize it. Thank you guys for watching my little review of the game. I very much enjoy it, and if you have any feedback or ideas for other games I should check out and make a short review of like this game, feel free to suggest them in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to read through it all. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.